Thank you, Ray Amaya. Always appreciate how you capture the vibe of the Treasure Valley right here, reflected each and every morning. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Let's go to our cyber, or as they say in Massachusetts, cyber security expert, Michael Doherty. How are you, sir?
I'm well. How are you?
I'm very excited to give you not the Chris Wallace treatment, but the Mike Wallace treatment. How about that, sir?
Yeah, I'll take either one. No problem.
Well, let's take a look at this. By the way, the devil inside the Beltway, the shocking expose of the U.S. government's surveillance and overreach into cybersecurity, medicine, and small business. We go back to the days of Edward Snowden. Do they seem quaint compared to the times we live in now?
Well, it's kind of a flip. That's giving, security secrets and all sorts of intimate detail that maybe can harm the country. This sort of harms the citizens as far as, how they're packaging things. So it's kind of the same umbrella, but, this one might hit people where they'll pay attention because people only pay attention to what happens in their daily lives.
Right.
Snowden seemed like some sort of, movie.
Yeah, and actually they made a couple movies of Snowden. But I, just going back to Snowden for a minute, Snowden was right. He's living with Putin in Russia. Of course, it's a big country. But Snowden was right, and yet there were no repercussions. He caught the federal government, law enforcement lying, invading our privacy, and nothing happened. What's your take on that?
Well, it's so hard for people to understand how long the government's had no leash, and because we're not taught this part of the government structure in a civics class. So we have to learn it as we observe it. So it's the first time we've watched it, but it's not the first time it's been happening. And it's about all the power the agencies have given themselves and Congress has given them in the 20th century. And to unwind this mess, people have got to really comprehend it. But there's a lot of forces out there that just think the government's wonderful. We just saw a bunch of them marching over the weekend on the Second Amendment. And so it's tough to get any government correction through because there's a whole pushback of people that still just don't get it. And it's not like we don't want government. We just want accountable government.
Well, that's easier said than done. We could also actually almost say we want accountable social media. Let's start with this one at KIDO Talk Radio, Michael Doherty. The disclosure from the whistleblower that Facebook can hear you. What's that about?
Well, okay, so what that's about is, once again, a lot of people in the media have really gotten the fine art of half-truths down. So, there's a lot of data collection. Some of the data collection can be, audio, and some of it can be piecemeal together in the right place. But they love to use those words that there's a microphone in your room, and that's on all the time. And there's not. It's a much more important issue about, the choice we have to make when we use something like Facebook. We have to understand that there's no expectation of privacy. There's just no expectation of privacy. And I've been saying the past week, I want everyone to go home and get a piece of paper and pencil and write that down 100 times, like when you were getting punished in school. Because, politically incorrectly, we did click the box. And I don't think, though, that in fairness, I don't think we understood what that meant 10, 15 years ago. We thought free equaled free, and free meant no money free. Free didn't mean they can't microchip you, gather all this information about you, and then package it and sell it. I think that's where the confusions come in. And but all these scary things out there are fine, but they don't help to really understand what the real problem is. There's two things going on in the past week. One is this has been going on for a long time. Data harvesting's been going on forever. They're just having a hysterical fit because Donald Trump used the tool.
Yeah, Hillary Clinton used the tool. It's okay, but Trump,
right. But the other side of the coin is, okay, so did we really understand 15 years ago in this new revolution that's just still exploding? No, I don't think we did. I think no one did. But did you think that you could piece together all this information you put on Facebook, and someone could do some analytics and download it, and analyze it, and box you in, and figure all this stuff out, and then decide what political party you're in, and then, be detrimental for that. Obama made agencies cough up private information so he could use it to analyze areas of compliance for housing. There's, or to figure out who his political enemies are, because, they loved retribution. The Obama administration got information on you, and then they'll use fear. The media, they scare the media. They control the media by hiring top spouses and siblings, and they control the media by starving off story to who they don't want to give story to. This is terrible stuff. And that's no one thought that all this information being given out was going to have that type of result. Now, I still think most people don't. They're just outraged that, this whole outrage the past week is, oh my gosh. Well, I think if you took the people that are really upset with Donald Trump out of the equation, there might not be so much, oh my gosh, but it's still a good discussion to have about, did we really realize what we're signing up for?
Our great friend Michael Dougherty, Cybersecurity Magazine, Kevin Miller in the morning here at KIDO Talk Radio. So let's get back to this expectation of privacy. Now, Michael Dougherty, I'm like a lot of people. I have a lot of dreams. And now talking to you, I'm thinking of coming up with this movie where you have some lowly CIA analysts whose job it is to tap into our Samsung TVs every night to find out what we're doing in front of the TV, and he's horrified by what he sees.
But it's not that science fiction-like, although that's what gets people going. It's more sublime. There's people that can make money off information about you in a group, not just you specifically, but in a group. And they piece all this together, and they crunch it, and they make a profit out of it, and they make money. And evidently there's a lot of money. Look how rich Google is. We're like Googling going, well, how do they make money? And it's all that they're, it's the fact that they've had time now to refine and package and information gather and promote and sell it. And Facebook does the same. So now, unlike 6 years ago, I was sitting in a restaurant and it pops up, oh, you're at this restaurant. Why don't you rate it? And I'm like, why don't I go change my security settings at Facebook is what I'm going to do, because that's creepy. And that's the type of stuff that seems innocent and creepy. But again, it's the other stuff they know about you. And this is what's really terrifying about this, is that Facebook, snuggled up to the government. Google was with Obama, the night he was reelected. So what I find slightly humorous about this is Mark Zuckerberg's going to grow up real fast. He's going to watch his government friends turn right on him. When he sits in front of that congressional testimony, it's not going to be, an admiration society.
Now, wait a minute. I'm sorry. I saw The Social Network. Mark Zuckerberg's going to be like that actor that portrayed him in the, based off the book The Accidental Billionaires, and he's going to rip Congress like he ripped those lawyers in that movie.
Yeah, okay, Kevin, thank you. Time to wake up. You're in that movie thing again. Washington is theater. It's opportunism. It is no loyalty. It is shred you and then go out and have coffee. It is, these hearings are just theater. It's just short of an attention span to hand the media so the public can think someone's doing something. So they're going to bring Google and Facebook up there, and someone's going to try to go at them to look like some sort of star. Or nothing's going to happen. And I vote nothing's going to happen, because you can't get there might be some theater in the hearing, but as far as the result of the hearing.
All right, Michael Dougherty, you're the CEO of LabMD, a medical testing lab. We haven't talked about healthcare in a while. Has Donald Trump done anything to get rid of the intrusiveness of Obamacare? And really, when it comes down to our own health, do we have any cybersecurity there, sir?
Well, actually, okay, those are two good questions. The first one is, he gave it a shot, and we didn't have the kahunas in Congress, so because everyone's afraid of hot potato. The Republicans know that if you touch medicine, you're going to lose no matter what. The Democrats never knew that. Okay, so they built this crazy thing, and the Republicans are like, you know what? I'm going to let it die in the vine, or else because I'm not going to get a political price to pay. So that's what they've done. Now, as far as healthcare, the irony of Obamacare is it's turned doctors' offices into, another level of bureaucracy, another level of paper pushing that drives costs up. It takes time away from patients, drives doctors crazy because that's not what they signed up for. And now they don't have money to make themselves secure. I mean, healthcare is very splintered. It's essentially small businesses. Almost all small businesses are undersecured because, you can't afford the millions of dollars. And also, it changes. I mean, what it takes to be secure is in constant change because the whole security issue in technology is just in constant change. So it's way too expensive. It's okay maybe, but it's not difficult to get into. The good news is, though, it's not the thieves want Social Security numbers. They're going to go to much bigger places for it. The only way physicians' offices really are vulnerable would maybe to ransomware, the two small potatoes one by one. Hospital systems are where the money is for the criminals, and there are several that have had major problems. And the government comes in and finds them a ton of money, which is money that comes away from patient care, and nothing gets better. And so, that's it. And who gets hurt again? The patients. So I hate to circle that around back to the government, but, the point is there's no one solving this problem. There's just a bunch of lawyers and the government trying to be heroes of punish people that makes them look good to Congress and the media.
Exactly. So, finally, it's been a while since we've talked about this issue. There you go, Kevin. What are we talking about? See, I'm still in the movies there, Michael. Sorry. I was watching, and here you go again. You're going to go, does this guy do anything besides talk on the radio or watch TV? No. I go to church, Michael. I need the prayers. I'm watching Homeland, and there's a scene where the main character gets locked out of her computer, and this is something that we've talked about, and we haven't talked about it for quite some time, where they ransom, and if you don't come up with $5,000, it's $10,000 and all this stuff. You can be really locked out of your computer and your phone. Is this trend growing, Michael?
Well, it's like the petty theft of the cyber world. And, I don't know. I don't think it's growing too much because I think we're getting better and better of dealing with it. And I think people know better now. They back up their data. It's not going away. It's a timely thing for a TV series. That's why everyone kind of loved Mr. Robot, before Mr. Robot went crazy. But it's just something to be aware of. The way you have to be proactive, and the way to be proactive against ransomware, which is very rare, it's going to happen to you. But if it did, the way to be proactive is just have your stuff backed up all the time, which is good, as we call cyber hygiene anyway. It's always good to have, something that is not going to be on the internet. I mean, you can have things back to the cloud all day long. That's probably great. But, you can also, if you want to be really, really, really paranoid, you can have, a hard drive in your house and a backup software and just make sure when it's not backing up, it's unplugged. But anyway, that defangs ransomware because you're like, well, guess what? I got a copy, so you can keep that.
Michael Daugherty, if people want to get a hold of you, we sure appreciate you. What can they do?
DevilInsideTheBeltway.com and Twitter and Facebook are there. My Twitter handle is DaughertyMJ. And you can figure out how to spell that at DevilInsideTheBeltway.com.
Thank you, brother.
All right. Good talking to you.
All right. Michael Daugherty with us. Coming up next, California and the state of citizenship.
The Constitution requires, as I said before, the actual enumeration of all people in every state every 10 years. By including a citizenship question, which will diminish response rates, the census will not be able to fulfill its constitutional duty to count everyone.
Actually, it's to count citizens, right, Sarah Sanders?
This is a question that's been included in every census since 1965, with the exception of 2010 when it was removed. We've contained this question that's provided data that's necessary for the Department of Justice to protect voters and specifically to help us better comply with the Voting Rights Act.
Yes! Citizens can vote. Non-citizens can't vote. What's wrong with California? Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And coming up, defending the president's family. Crazy, crazy, crazy. We are talking about craziness in California. And do you agree with their decision to sue the federal government? Apparently 12 states are going to sue it because they just want to know if people are citizens. I think that's remarkably refreshing. Don't you? By the way, the liberal state of Massachusetts has an issue with guns. We'll get to that. And a former Supreme Court justice wants to take away the Second Amendment. Boy, is there any good news? Let's try this guy, C-3PO, once again at KIDO Talk Radio with Kevin Miller. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Honored to follow a man with such good knowledge as Michael Dougherty. I'll just lead off. The P's start for pontificate, professional, and bucolic, and I'm punking real quick. Liberal Steve still is not liberal. The word is not liberal. It's commie, pinko commie. So here it is. People talk in bigotry. We're looking at electing a governor. This is an epic time. And when people say Mr. Little, more of the same, that's just bigotry. And I would love to challenge, Mr. Little knows this. I've been able to sit next to him and take communion. I know his heart, and he's from a beautiful country, and he's third generation. And when you're with somebody and they're taking the sacraments, and he'll be there, I know exactly where he'll be on Sunday. So all of my pontificating this morning is like, what does more of the same mean? There's the first question. Somebody who has heart and soul and loves this country. Labradors make excellent retrieving animals, and I've had 5 labs in my life. Some of them live to be 16. And Labrador is a beautiful country. But Mr. Labrador wants to come to Idaho. I would love Mr. Labrador to come over to the land where Mr. Little resides, the ranching, and it's not very far from, I don't know if Labrador even knows that. This is not to slam Labrador, but I'm ready to hear real men discuss the issues with 10 or 11-year-old kids asking the questions, the kids that have the skill set with the debate team over there in that county. And then lastly, if I ever hear liberal Steve again, how about Pinko Commie Steve, the pothead? Enough said. Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye, C-3PO. We appreciate it. Traffic and weather together. David in Nampa with Kevin Miller at KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, David.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for taking my call. Listen, what this is about is, you know how every now and then you hear an angry black person say, the government made me 3/5 of a person. That's not true. The government did not make black people 3/5 of a person, ever. In fact, in 1790s New Jersey, a free black woman could vote. The government made slaves 3/5 of a person. The reason being very simple. The abolitionists, and by the way, Frederick Douglass saluted this, wanted slaves not to count at all for the ridiculous reason that they weren't free. Well, you allocate congressional representation based on population. Now, California has an anniversary. This year will be the 20th anniversary that California stopped growing. Okay, and I mean since California was an all-Indian state. It has grown. However, people, me and my friends, are bailing. They have been bailing. They've lost at least 1 and maybe 2 congressional seats. New York is losing seats. Somebody said they lost 14. Massachusetts is losing seats. You know, they are in real trouble. They haven't had immigrants. I mean, you know, they've had immigrants from other countries, legal and others. You know how John Steinbeck, and my mother was from Iowa, he said California was settled by a slow leak from Iowa. Americans aren't going to California. They are fleeing California. And now, they're afraid. They're not afraid to get their welfare check. They're not afraid to do their identity theft when they steal someone's identity and get an illegal job,
right.
Although most of them go on welfare. This is what this is about.
What do you make of this whole thing with California, though, suing the federal government about not only that, but wanting to become a sanctuary state, seceding? Does this represent, David, all the people of California?
Well, I've every survey I've ever heard, and the prostitutes don't like to do it, have said 76% of the people are against it. And that doesn't mean 24 are for it, because some of them are undecided. But unfortunately, in the Democrat Party, and the Democrats do not, the scum rises to the top. They do not speak for the average Democrat, who thinks, oh, Democrats just helping people out or whatever. Not anymore. They don't represent the average people. And the taxpayers are hating it. That's why Orange County's having a revolt, where the sheriff says this and the sheriff says that. But it's just, they're lawless. And, they want to secede. Well, didn't we have that conversation a century and a half ago? You can't. Seriously.
David, great point. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Doug. KIDO Talk Radio, our great friend Simon Owen joining us, Fox News Radio in London. Simon, good morning.
Good morning.
We've been talking about this here in Idaho, and I'm sure across the country. Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook looks like he's going to testify before our Congress here. What's going on across the pond concerning Facebook?
Yeah, that's the rumor, is that he is about to say he will go to Congress and answer questions. But what we can say for sure here is that he is not going to be coming to London or doing any kind of video link connection, it sounds like, because Facebook has said he is not willing to answer British lawmakers' questions. This goes back to the growing scandal that is across your side of the pond as well, over an apparent data breach. The personal information of some 50 million people reported to have ended up in the hands of a political consultancy firm working for the Trump campaign, after Facebook users who volunteered their information were told it was for academic research. It involves a British company. There have been suggestions and allegations. It involves the Brexit referendum on Britain leaving the EU as well. So it ends up with lawmakers both in Washington and in London very keen to ask some questions to the Facebook founder, Mark Zuckerberg. Lawmakers here said that Facebook officials had previously misled them about Facebook's data problems. They're not happy about that, and they say it's time someone at the top of the company gave an accurate account. And in a letter to Mark Zuckerberg, they say, we hope that would be you. But Facebook says Zuckerberg is willing to offer up one of his deputies to face questions, but he does not want to do it.
It's interesting. What is circulating here in this country is an old BBC interview that Zuckerberg did in 2009 concerning, whose information it was. He was asked by the reporter, is it your information or is it the user's information? And Zuckerberg in this interview says it's their information, in other words, our information, and we own it, not Facebook. I'm wondering if you've heard about that interview, if that's circulating over at your place.
Yeah, and I mean, that sort of a comment and an assertion is the kind of thing that companies have said. You can be really blunt and sort of real world about this and say that in the internet era, is there anything like privacy anymore, or do we agree that basically it's in the hands of tech companies and we never know what's going to happen with it, but we take that chance because we want to use the internet? But Facebook's argument is that you can trust it with your information. That's what they've always said. And so there is a lot of contrition around about this scandal. Certainly here in Britain, a number of newspapers carried full-page ads at the weekend from Facebook in which Zuckerberg said that there had been a leak involving millions of people's data. He apologized for that last week, for the mistakes the company had made, and he promised to restrict developers' access to user information as part of a plan to protect privacy. So they're not denying that something has gone awry here and they've made mistakes, and that's why they accept that they're at the center of a bit of a crisis here. What the response to the British lawmakers, saying that, no, I'm not going to answer your questions, I don't think that's necessarily a huge surprise. They certainly can't force people to answer questions, and certainly not a foreigner. But the British lawmaker who made the initial request is not impressed with what he got in response. Damian Collins, he said this, quote, "It is absolutely astonishing that Mark Zuckerberg is not prepared to submit himself to questioning. We would urge him to think again if he has any care for the people who use his company's services."
So again, there could be a lot of repercussions here with Facebook. Are people opting out? We hear a lot of reports here that they are. Do you all have any reports of that happening in England and Europe?
Well, I mean, it's certainly been suggested, but you'd have to get figures from Facebook for that. And as far as I'm aware, that company has not released any figures. I mean, Mark Zuckerberg was asked about this, and I think he's probably right when he says that the number that they've seen so far is not really noticeable compared to their global user base. You know, this is a company with billions and billions of people who use it very regularly. And so it would have to be a massive exodus for it to have any impact on Facebook services. I think what may raise some concerns in the higher echelons of Facebook management is that its share price has had a rotten time since this scandal erupted, and there are concerns among investors about how the company is handling this, and that's the sort of thing that would, I think, start to rattle the cages of these executives. Hence, you get these noises coming out that Mark Zuckerberg may, in fact, go to Congress, may submit himself to questioning, but it sounds like he's not interested in coming to London.
Simon Owen, finally, what do you all make of the North Korean leader going to China and hopefully resolving the situation? Of course, you're a veteran journalist. We've heard this story before. You know, based on your experience, based on who you talk to, do you think there's any more there than usual?
Well, I mean, with North Korea being such a closed country and a closed government, you have to rely to an extent on experts who keep an eye on this sort of thing. We were in Seoul a few weeks ago and spoke to people there about the state of relations. There is skepticism among experts, as there always is with anything North Korea does. You know, technically the North Korean regimes that have preceded this one, I think they've also said that they are committed to the denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula, and they always find some way out. They say, but the Americans have done this, so we have to keep the weapons, and that sort of thing always comes into it. But it is very unusual what's been going on in the past few days. You know, there were rumors spreading of an armored train being spotted rolling into Beijing, and the rumors were that Kim Jong-un, the North Korean leader, was on board. Well, now we have that confirmed by both China and North Korea, that he did make this visit to China. First time we think he's been outside North Korea since coming to power 6 years ago. And it sounds like the proposed meeting with President Trump did come up. So it sounds like they are on board with the idea of having this summit, which will be a big diplomatic moment. But whatever comes out of that summit, there will be huge skepticism about any promises from North Korea until there's concrete proof that they're actually doing something.
Simon Owen, Fox News Radio in London. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Kevin.
42 after the hour, we continue on. Don't forget, win Kevin Miller's cash coming up next week. We are so pumped for your opportunity to win up to $5,000 on KIDO Talk Radio. For more details, go to KIDOTalkRadio.com and make sure you sign up, you download the KIDO Talk Radio app. People love it. It's the best ever. Google Plus and the iPhone store, the Apple store. Let's get to some of your phone calls. Your thoughts on North Korea. We'll get back to California and so much to talk about today. The idea of citizenship and whether or not that should be on the census. Ridiculous. Yes, it should be. My goodness gracious. And the media, they've stooped to a new low by going after not only the president, but his family and people of faith. Thankfully, we have Max in Garden City to brighten our day. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Kevin. Good morning, everybody. Kevin, I was on the phone at great length speaking with two very, very reliable sources, and I was not surprised to find that Kim Jong-un was summoned. He didn't just say, let's talk about it. Xi Jinping said, you get your keister up here right now.
Really?
Yes. And the air around the talks was heated, but ended up very, very, very jovial. Now, I'm not surprised. I've been expecting Xi Jinping to pull something like this because China's worst fear is having American troops on the other side of the river. They don't like that idea at all. And if China doesn't do something about it, they know that they may very well have South Korean and American troops on their border. China has enough nuclear enemies, 5 right now, that border China. She doesn't need the United States. So I just thought I'd let you know, this meeting was done in a hurry, and it was done from a very heated Li Keqiang, who's the premier, on behalf of President Xi Jinping.
And for people that aren't familiar with Max, he's lived in China. He's written 2 books on China. He's our China expert. So before we get going here at KIDO Talk Radio, you've talked to your friends in China about this?
And in Andorra and a couple of places of exile where some of my formerly very powerful Chinese people live. And they have their connections.
So he got on his little choo-choo train, and they said, come on, Kim, we're going to tell it like it is. So what do you think the Chinese told him when they summoned him there?
Okay, not being a fly on the wall, but catching all the vibes from a lot of people, I'm going to speculate. Xi Jinping said, enough is enough. Let's wrap this mess up right now. Let's turn what remaining nuclear you have toward power generation. We'll bring you the technology and the people, and let's talk about dismantling most of your weapons. Let's talk about installing safety procedures in the launch of your weapons. China basically supports North Korea's right to have nuclear weapons so they don't get overwhelmed or invaded by people on their border. But they don't like the way he's going. They don't like the rhetoric. They think that between Kim Jong-un blasting off with this and that, and President Twitter Trump blasting off with his, the situation's become untenable. And to protect themselves, China is now taking a very decisive role. And you're going to see China shake her fist. Now, when she shakes her fist at North Korea, okay, North Korea's got a bigger army. China's got a bigger army. North Korea has a lot of weapons. China has more weapons. They're all very well trained, and North Korea doesn't want to go up in flames. I'm going to make a prediction. I'm going to reach out there, and I'm going to say this entire situation will be resolved by the fall.
Fair enough, Max. We'll hold you to it.
And in the meantime, remember, plug my book for me, will you, buddy?
Here we go. Go ahead.
Okay. Amazon.com. Guys, type it on your computer or go to FAP Press, PFAP, PRESS, and you'll find Eyes on China, and you'll find Paper Dragon. They're easy reads available in paperback or Kindle, and the price is down to $7.99 for the books, $5.99 for the Kindle.
All right, Max. Thank you. Let's go to Tom in Napa with Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Tom.
Oh, good morning, Kevin.
You know, we almost might start calling you California Tom.
Pardon?
We almost might start calling you California Tom.
Oh, no. I flew that land of lunacy a year and a half ago. I'm officially a citizen of Idaho. I've got Idaho license plates,
Okay.
Idaho driver's license, and I'm paying income tax in the state of Idaho.
Okay.
So I'm a full-fledged, bona fide citizen of this state. A couple of callers back brought up the apportionment, and that's the whole reason for the census is to change every 10 years how the apportionment of the House of Representatives, and that's been a fixed number since 1929. It's 435. So some states gain states, some states lose states, and California, I just checked here, has gained states every year, every census since it became a state in 1850. Currently having 53 representatives. It gained only 1 in the last census and 2 in the 2000 census. So the overall population of California has grown in each census, except there's been a problem of about 1,000 people a day that live in that state fleeing, like me, and then that's been made up for the fact that about 2,000 foreigners are moving into California every day. So the population continues to grow. And the reason California is all up in arms about this requiring on the census count, are you a citizen? That question was dropped, I guess, in 1950. So I, like you, thought it was just citizens that were voted by. I Googled on here and checked the Constitution, and it says here in the 14th Amendment, I'm reading here in Section 2, representatives shall be apportioned among the several states according to the respective numbers counting the whole number of persons in each state, excluding Indians not taxed. So it doesn't make any mention of counting just citizens. And so I was kind of surprised at that, it says the whole number excluding Indians not taxed. And the original clause that addressed the issue of the census had that same wording, except for it had every 5 slaves were counted as 3. That was irrespective of race, but they weren't considered citizens, but they were considered a 3/5 person as far as representation in Congress, the amount of people that they would get. So I don't know. I guess just to count citizens, we'd need another constitutional amendment. But I'll tell you what I'm really disturbed about is there's nothing in the Constitution that gives non-citizens a right to vote. But in California, starting Sunday, on April 1st, there's a law going into effect that automatically registers to vote anybody that's signing up for a driver's license or renewing a driver's license. And in California, illegal aliens can have driver's license. And they've got no way of really checking because they've banned any way of checking on citizenship or ID or anything for voting. So what's to stop illegals from voting? And I think a lot of them did vote in the last election. How else did Hillary Clinton carry that state by 4.5 million?
Not only that, but let's go back to our friend B1 Bob Dornan and how he was voted out of office in Orange County back in 1996.
Yeah, I think he lost by about 800 votes or something, and Loretta Sanchez beat him. And I don't know. There's just a lot of people. What's wrong with requiring an ID for voting? You can't even cash a check at any bank without an ID. You can't even buy certain prescription medicines without an ID. Everybody should be issued an ID and not have to pay for it if they don't have the money.
All I know, Tom, is when I go to Star to vote, maybe I look suspicious. Maybe I look like a non-citizen. Maybe I look like I just got here off the boat. But they ask me for my ID in Star all the time.
Yeah.
They won't let me vote without it. They won't let me vote without it. So I agree with you.
Yeah, and anytime a state tries to pass this, they say, this intimidates minorities. Well, if you're a citizen and have a legal right to vote, you shouldn't object to be having your ID asked. Everybody should be asked. I don't remember if I was asked. The only thing that bugs me in Idaho is they don't even tell you where you vote here. You have to call down the elections office to find out where you vote. And in California, they do send out.
Right. That's what we call self-reliance. Tom, thank you for the call. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And that's thanks to our friends at Genesis. You'll never hear that song ever again. Kevin Miller in the morning here, KIDO Talk Radio. Phone number is 580-5436. 580-KIDO. You go to the state of California, and it seems as if they're having a civil war. You have many people saying, we're not down with the sanctuary cities. We don't like the sanctuary cities. We're not going to enforce the sanctuary cities laws. And now you have the Attorney General of California looking to run for higher office, I believe, stating that he is going to possibly go after the sheriff who doesn't want a sanctuary city.
State law is state law, and it's my job to enforce state law. I will do so, and we want to make sure that every jurisdiction, including Orange County, understand what state law requires of the people and the subdivisions of the state of California.
Does that mean a lawsuit against the sheriff's department or an arrest of the sheriff?
I think I just answered that. Okay, thanks very much.
Here you have the Attorney General of California will not rule out arresting the sheriff of Orange County, California. Now, I love what Brenda says here on the Fox and Friends Facebook. This California doesn't agree with you, jerk. We Californians want our state back. Californians remember November. Sessions arrest this poser lawbreaker. I love this one from another post. If you want to enforce the law, then the federal government needs to enforce the law and arrest the Oakland mayor that warned the illegals about ICE coming. Isn't it hypocritical that here we have, at 580-5436, 580-KIDO, the Attorney General touting state law, yet this is the same Attorney General that has an issue with federal law? Where is the consistency, Your Honor? Time for traffic and weather, KIDO. And there we have it. Again, don't you find it odd that here we have the highest law enforcement official in the Golden State talking about enforcing laws? Sir, look in the mirror. Speaking of which, Fox News is next. KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning.